Well, thank you for that. You keep an eye on who's coming into that number 10 door. And while I speak to the Shadow Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, who's joining us now live. Good morning to you, Shadow Foreign Secretary. And thanks for being with us this morning.
Good morning.
So you've now seen the back of Boris Johnson. What are you expecting from Liz Truss?
Well, look, if she governs the country like she campaigned, I think we're in for a very turbulent time. Unfunded tax cuts that would continue a low-growth economy and basically benefit the wealthy and not those who are working, and particularly those who are poor. And, of course, big issues that people are facing in the health service, getting a GP appointment, waiting for operations, big issues in our education system where I'm afraid school sizes have grown and there's a big difference emerging between London and parts of the northeast, for example, and crime soaring across our country. These are very big issues. Some of it did not come up in the leadership campaign. What we saw was Liz Truss tacking to the sort of right regions of her party and not really addressing issues in the country. And if that's how she's going to govern, then I think we're in for a very tough time indeed.
Yeah, and Mr. Lammy, you'll know that there is a support package that's due to be announced in the next few days. Hundreds, billions of pounds being spent, and a possible freeze to energy bills, which is exactly the policy that Labour was suggesting. So you must be happy with that plan.
Well, we first called for a windfall tax back in January. It took the Conservatives months and months and months to copy our policy and adopt it. We've called for a freeze. I welcome Liz Truss' Damascene conversion if she adopts our policy, but the devil will be in the detail. Is she, in fact, going to burden the general public with higher bills in the years ahead and get the money that way, which I think would be grossly unfair and not benefit the wider economy? Or is she going to do what we've said, which is ensure that the North Sea oil high profits that they've made, profits that they weren't predicting, actually contribute to freezing those bills? That's the detail that we'll need to see over the coming days.
And that's the key word you do there, isn't it? Contribute, because as you know, that windfall tax that you've suggested won't get anywhere near the scale of the amount of money that's needed.
Well, in fact, I think our proposal was for the next 6 months. That was the emergency period that we were addressing, and we costed our proposal. What's been speculated in the media is that Liz Truss has a plan for 2 years, which is obviously a lot more money, and that's why we're seeing money above 100 billion. But look, these are her plans. We will scrutinise those plans very intently. But look, the debate now is not about supporting the general public. I think Labour have driven that debate and the Conservatives accept that people need that support, and I'm glad to see Liz Truss coming with us. The key issue is who pays. Is it ordinary working people, or is it those with the broadest shoulders? And talking about unfunded tax cuts, talking about a reduction in corporation tax, all suggests that her interests are actually with those, the wealthy, and she's going to make those who are working pay for it. And that's what we will be opposing. That's the dividing line in politics at the moment.
Yeah, and we'll find out exactly how they do propose to pay for it in the next couple of days. We've been promised. And you'll hear the noises off, Mr. Lammy. You'll know that Cabinet is about to begin. So some of those new Cabinet members are arriving as we speak. And I want to get your comments on the top team that Liz Truss has assembled for herself. It's the most diverse top team that's ever been seen at the top of government.
Look, I welcome the fact that we are a multi-ethnic, multicultural country. It's a journey that began under Tony Blair with the appointment of people like Valerie Amos, Patricia Scotland, Paul Boateng, and it continued with David Cameron, who brought on a generation of these people who are now in the cabinet, and indeed he asked me to do a review, so I welcome that. Labour remains committed to these issues. We're the natural party, I think, of diversity in our country. I think we've got a higher percentage of MPs that come from an ethnic background, but I think all of us can celebrate a multi-ethnic Britain. It's the Britain, by the way, that won us the Olympics back in 2012. It's good to see it mirrored in the Conservative Party at this time.
I'm glad you did mention David Cameron and leave it all to Tony Blair there, because it was a lot of his moves to try and get more gender diverse, more ethnically diverse people into those positions, and that kind of helped get us to where we are here. But I do
let me
wonder,
just say, this is not a partisan issue at all.
No, exactly not.
It goes to the heart of the kind of country that we want to be, an outward-facing, inclusive country that has reach all over the global community. And that's why, by the way, I texted James Cleverly and Kwasi Kwarteng yesterday. We have good, cordial relationships, and I congratulated them on their appointment.
And I'm sure they'll be very happy to hear that from you, Ms. Lammy. But I do want to take you a little bit further on this, because then what responsibility to having that diverse top team have for those communities that they represent at the very top, where we haven't seen people like that before?
Well, as I say, I mean, I do think we've seen diversity in the cabinet, but clearly Kwasi Kwarteng's appointment and James Cleverly is important because these are big offices of state. All of us need role models, whatever our background, and I hold that dear, particularly for working people, white and black, that need to see role models that look like them, our young people in public life. And so, as I say, I think we celebrate this, and I'm very pleased to see big offices of state going to these individuals and representing the kind of country that we want to be, recognising that there are many other countries within the democratic Western tradition that have not arrived at that diverse place yet.
Well, just follow on from that then. So what does it tell us about Britain, particularly, that we have managed to arrive at this point, as you put it?
Well, I think it reminds us that Britain is a country with a history that reaches all across the globe. I think it reminds us that we've now been on a journey really since the Windrush generation came to this country post the Second World War, and you start to see that second, third generation exceeding. But I think it also tells us that there's more to do, because that is not replicated across every sector of our country. We're seeing it in politics in some ways because of acts of positive discrimination by both the Labour Party and indeed by David Cameron when he was leader of the Conservative Party. So I think there's more to do. But of course, we've got to welcome the diversity that we're seeing in the current cabinet.